All right, why South Carolina can upset Missouri this year. Locked on Gamecock starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. We have a late show coming tonight. This is going to shock you. The reason why, Spectrum themselves. But listen, I want to say thank you so much to everybody that tuned in yesterday. All the kind words you guys had for some of the stuff that was going on up and down from the past week. Very excited for tonight's show, and it looks like the internet is working fine. So welcome in. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Thank you for making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out, as we always do, to our favorites here, the everydayers. We are free and available wherever you hear podcasts, as well as on YouTube every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, listen, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app. You guys have heard me brag about these guys. They're fantastic. Download the app, create an account, use the promo code Locked On College, all capital letters, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Let's get to it. Guys, welcome into the show. I want to say thank you again. I understand the frustration from some of you guys. I told you that no one's more frustrated than I am with some of the stuff that's going on with Spectrum. It's been a relief to hear that it's also been an issue for some people in this Columbia and Lexington area. But nonetheless, we are back and we are ready to go. We have a good episode today. I'm very excited about it. It'll be a quick episode. And there's some fun stuff to get into. So we start the show with this, our first segment. We're going to get into the fact that I was going over some of these games in the schedule, and I was thinking, who's a team that South Carolina might be right to upset? And Mizzou is the answer. And let me explain why. Like, on paper, it shouldn't be. Like, Mizzou is going to be a top 10 team. I think that they are going to compete for an SEC championship. I think, I'll go back and revisit this before the season starts, but after media days, I had as my preseason poll how I would have voted. I would have had them third. And the reason why is not because, oh man, Mizzou has got, all this crazy talent. Luther Burden could be a top 5 pick. I love Brady Cook, by the way, as a quarterback. I think he's great. I think Brady Cook I think Lenore Sellers has a lot of Brady Cook in him in terms of he's going to do a good job and be a very, very good college quarterback that's very efficient and still somehow not get enough attention for it, if that makes sense. Like, he's going to be just a very efficient, I don't want to say game manager, but quarterback that does not get enough love. That's Brady Cook. But I kept thinking about this, and it was like, you look at South Carolina's schedule, and this is something I brought up a bunch during the preseason shows that we've done. And there's not really a game on here when you look at the schedule saying, that's a toss-up. I wonder if South Carolina could pull an upset here. I wonder if they could pull an upset here. So sometimes you get that with like Clemson, right? Because it's a rivalry game. Like Tennessee could be somebody that you would think to maybe throw in there, but Tennessee obviously is not on the schedule this year. Kentucky, you jumped up and got last year. So I think that's another one that you could potentially make that case for. But when I kept looking at it, it just feels like Mizzou is the answer. And again, going back to, like, I had them at third, but it's strictly because of their schedule. I mean, their schedule is a joke. Their schedule is a joke. I heard Eli Drinkwitz try to defend this at media days, and I was shocked that he even tried to do it. This is Mizzou's schedule this year, okay? Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, Vanderbilt, A&M, at Massachusetts, at UMass, right? Auburn, at Bama, Oklahoma, at Carolina, at Mississippi State, and Arkansas at home to close it out. Now, I'm going to try to thumb through this because I have another thing I want to bring up on here. But when you look at their schedule and the ranking of that schedule, you look at Phil Steele's preseason magazine talking about how, which teams play the easiest schedules in the SEC. And the team that jumps out is Mizzou, because from a standpoint of opponent winning percentage, they're far and away the weakest schedule in the entire conference. Out of all 16 teams, I believe they are I know for a fact they ranked last. They ranked 127th. 127th going into this year for their opponent's record win percentage from a year ago. Like that, I mean, that's unfathomably low. The next closest team in the conference is Tennessee at 68. You only had 3 of the 16 teams outside the top 50, and it's Auburn, Tennessee, and Mizzou. But again, Mizzou 127 down near the very, very bottom. That's insane. That's just insane to me. So that's the only reason I really have them that high. I think they're going to be good. I thought it was great last year. But here's the thing about, I think, knocking off Mizzou that people are just refusing to talk about. We are a very much of a what have you done for me lately society, right? I don't mean to get on a soapbox here, but we are. Like, and when we talk about college football, it's almost always, talk about the Greg McElroy quote, it's almost always like, here's what I think is going to happen. And it's based off of what I saw last year. It's not usually because of like, oh, you know what? Like, because no one can predict the future. But here's what I think is going to happen. And it's based off of last year. And I think that's just a fool's errand to run this year, especially with South Carolina, because like there's in this day and age of the transfer portal, it's going to be so much more difficult year over year to predict, like from preseason magazines and predictions, like who has what is this team going to look like? Most teams are going to have a very, very new identity. South Carolina is one of those teams. Now you can look at this game and say, all right, well, listen, Mizzou's won 5 in a row. Let me pull this up on Winsipedia. They've won 5 in a row for sure. They've won 7 of the last 10, right? I mean, like that's a team you've struggled with. But you look at some of these scores, it's like, I mean, like the last couple of years, 31-28. You know, you had a 21-20 game. You had a, 17-10. Like so these games aren't like blowouts. When I look at Mizzou and I think about the stuff that they're going to have to repeat from this year versus last year, we haven't seen them do it. We're very, very quick to jump on teams like Mizzou, Ole Miss, Texas, because look what they did last year, guys. They won 11 games last year. Texas made it to the CFP. Ole Miss won 11 games and beat Penn State in the Peach Bowl. They went to a New Year's Six Bowl. Most wins in program history in a single season. Okay. Mizzou played Georgia really, really close. Okay, that was last year. I like going into this year, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, this is a team that they're going to year 5 of Drinkwitz. Drinkwitz has been there for he's had 4 total seasons. 3 of them were losing seasons. 3 of the 4 until last year. Well, as I brought up a while back with Texas has been this the actual narrative and that's played out to what we've seen, not just like irrationally believed, but what we've seen from Texas is, hey, you know what? Texas is going to have a ton of talent. They're going to have a great recruiting class, probably top 10. They are bound for at least 3 losses. They've had 3 conference losses in the Big 12 in 8 of the last 10 years. They've had 4 losing seasons and only 2 10-win seasons over the last 14 years combined. Not great. So my question is, why is that all of a sudden for these programs? Like, what is it? What has changed? If you look at an actual sample size of the last 10 years, and it's like, oh, okay, well, like, convince me that I'm wrong on any argument that's not just recency bias. Well, they were great last year. Okay. Do you know that Mizzou last year had more defensive players drafted than Georgia? Wrap your head around that. That's a great salute to the program. It also kind of concerns me if I'm Mizzou going into this year. But here's the thing, and here's the thing that I keep coming back to. And of course, I've somehow miraculously closed this out instead of keeping it open like an idiot. Let me pull it back up here. I've brought this up repeatedly, and the opportunity that's in front of South Carolina and their fans and this program this year, I think there's a really good opportunity this year to, in a pipe dream sense, man, you could really accomplish a lot with some big home wins this year. You got a lot of opportunity on that schedule with Ole Miss, LSU, Mizzou that are going to be nationally ranked teams, top 15 teams coming to Columbia, and you have a chance to really make a statement, like where you might have multiple opportunities like you did against Tennessee and in late November of 2022. I'm not saying you're going to win like that, but like here's the deal: teams struggle on the road. You look at Mizzou. I brought up the fact that, listen, last year they had 11 wins. Fantastic year. Last year they were 5-1 in road and neutral site games. Their only loss was to Georgia on the road. Okay, 5-1. Let's backtrack a little bit and let's look at the sample size that we've been given with Eli Drinkwitz, because I don't know why 11 wins is all of a sudden going to be the norm for Missouri. Okay, 2022, when you look at what they had, they went on in road games about 1-5. Okay, let's go back another year before that. 2021, road games, 1-5. 2-10 in back-to-back years. Let's go back to 2020, just be on the safe side. 1-3. So in the 4 years that he's been there, man, that 11-win season's great. The 5-1 on the road is fantastic. Your only losses to Georgia, and you guys were ahead in that game too. Cool. So is South Carolina at halftime. Awesome. But you talk about the 3 previous years, which seem to be the more consistent output and production we've seen under Eli Drinkwitz teams. You're 3-13. 3-13. Even if you want to throw in the 5-1, 8-14 in games, 8-14 in road games. I'm not great at math. What's 4 out of 11? Around like 436, like 43.6%. I mean, all I'm saying to you is that's not actually. I think it's less than that. Probably should have done the calculator. Either way, all I'm saying to you is that is not a great record on the road, and that's the consistent output and production that we've seen from Eli Drinkwitz's teams. The other part of it that I'll bring up, Luther Burden, okay? And I'm not – listen, they were a good enough team last year to win games without him being 100% healthy. Then they had Cody Schrader, even though he's gone to the NFL. But I just want to break this down in terms of like all the things that have to go right for this team from Mizzou that everyone's just assuming like, yeah, that's going to happen. Like, I mean, Luther Burden's good. He's the best receiver in the country. Has he had a crazy amount of production that I've missed over like consistently? Because here's the breakdown of his games from a year ago. Luther Burden, and I think Luther Burden's a really good quarterback, a really good receiver. I don't know how good of a quarterback he would be. Let's hope we don't have to see that. But Luther Burden, I think, is a fantastic receiver. I think he's electric. I don't think Eli Drinkwitz got him the ball enough as a freshman. Sophomore last year, we got to see him kind of come to life a little bit. But let's look at the numbers. First half of the season, 6 games. You had 54 receptions in 6 games. That's 9 per game. 9 per game. You had 132 receiving yards per game, 5 receiving touchdowns, 6 100-yard games. So you had a 100-yard game in every single one. 7+ receptions in the game. You had 5 out of 6. That's what you did in your first half of the games. You had over 132 yards per game. You had almost a touchdown per game. You had 100 yards every game. What about the second half when the competition got a little bit stronger? The second half, the last 7 games, how'd he do? 32 receptions, so nearly cut in half. Receiving yards per game, 59.9, so like cut more than in half. Receiving touchdowns, only had 4. Receiving or 100-yard receiving games, 1 in the last 7. 1. He had 6 in the first 6. He had 1 in the last 7. 7+ receptions in a game. He had 1. Teams got the game plan for him. You're a little bit later in the year. The more tape. See, figure out what you can do. Oh, here's the other part too. Here's what I meant to bring up. Well, how could this escape my mind? In the first half of the season, when he put up all those gaudy numbers, they played 2 ranked opponents. In the second half, they played 4. And his numbers dropped dramatically. I'm not saying he's not a fantastic receiver. What I am saying is there are numbers that don't lie that are telling us this is a situation where I think I think that Mizzou is a team that's ripe for the picking. I'm going to give you another reason why after the break, because shockingly, guys, I have gone over the first segment and gone way too long, as I always do. Make sure you stick around for segment 2. We're going to continue talking about this, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I think is going to happen in this game, even though it's a ways away. Before we do, listen, I want to tell you about our good friends at Game Time. Listen, I love the Game Time app. I love sports. I love them so much that I don't want them to stop sporting, all that good stuff. But listen, the thing with the Game Time app, going into this season, there are some marquee games, man, and it is a company and a ticketing broker, I guess is the best way to put it, that is second to none in this industry. They do a phenomenal job getting you the most basic and the best needs that you could have when you are making your ticket purchasing needs. What do I mean by that? I mean, you get to see your view from the seats right away. You can also see your all-in price up front. That to me is like the main thing. Like I joke around about it all the time, like with ordering like Uber Eats or DoorDash or Instacart, but like especially with ticket companies, the fees that pile up and you don't see until you make your final purchase Love the fact that the Game Time app, you can get that out of the way right up front. They also they are a partner with Major League Baseball. Tons of opportunities to go see games for the rest of summer, even though we're only 35 days away from college football season. Can't wait. Maybe you want to go to the soccer game next week in Williams-Brice next Friday night. Get on the Game Time app, download the app, use Locked On College as all one word, all capital letters, and you get $20 off your first purchase. I think that is a fantastic way to spend your time before you get into the season. So make sure you stick around for segment 2. We're going to continue talking about Mizzou and why I think they're right for the upset. And we will continue on Locked On Gamecocks after this. All right. Welcome back in, guys. I want to get back into this. Maybe it's just a pipe dream that I'm on tonight, but either way, I'm very excited. Before we get into a couple reasons why I think the Mizzou team is right for the picking and right for an upset against South Carolina, I want to ask you this. If you were watching Fox Sports or ESPN on TV all day, or maybe you're like me and you tuned in today to the opening ceremonies of the Olympics and then we're horrified because of some of the content that was being put in front of us. They had Marie Antoinette's just walking around without their heads on. Our pets' heads were falling off. Wild things happening in Paris in the opening ceremony. So if that is not for you, how about this? How about you make the switch to Locked On Sports today? It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming and all the Marie Antoinette's heads falling off. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right. I don't even know why I choose to make 2 segments. Or 3 segments. Almost every time we've done this, it's been like, here's what I have planned, and we have run just horribly over. Regardless, I hope you guys have enjoyed today's show. And again, I just don't think it's a pipe dream. I really don't. I think there's enough reasons I'm putting in place here that would make me start to believe. There's a lot of things that have to fall in place, sure. But here's the other part of this too, that I was talking about this with actually a Mizzou podcast the other day that had me on. We were going through their season and talking about their schedule. If you talk to Mizzou, just being familiar with that fan base and that program, and I have my best friend is from St. Louis and he's a big Mizzou fan, and I feel like I've been around the outskirts of that program for a while, and I feel like I'm a Mizzou apologist sometimes, like covering the SEC. It's like before I was working for Locked On Gamecocks, like covering the SEC for the last 10 or so years, like I feel like they get a bad rap. I feel like, they came into the SEC, the geography thing is like always used against them, and everyone kind of, craps on them, thinks they're not that great. They won 2 divisions and 2 division titles in their first 3 years. They've had a good program. One of the things about Mizzou that people don't understand is this. When they came into the league in 2012 and they went 4-8, their first year in the league, before the season started, they lost their entire starting 5 offensive linemen. That's true. Lost their entire starting 5 offensive linemen. They actually lost their 6th guy as well, who was like a jack of all trades type guy that was supposed to be like adding depth. They lost all for the season. An insane run of injuries. There was a point. This is not a joke. There was a point where Mizzou coaches were riding around on campus on golf carts looking for dudes with size that might just be able to add some depth to the roster. That's real. In 2012, going into the SEC, going into the toughest conference in the country, very difficult thing to do. So I feel bad for the way they came in, and I feel like they get a bad rap for them not being a great program and blah, 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 blah. One of the things that I also know about Mizzou is this whole little brother dismissive attitude that people have towards them isn't just with SEC fans. It's also from their last conference. And one of the teams from their last conference, Oklahoma, is coming into the SEC this year. And we talk all the time in this industry about trap games and being able to jump up and go get somebody when they least expect it. Now, again, I'm taking the schedule. Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, Vandy, all at home, by the way. A week off before A&M. I think they lose that game. At UMass, Auburn at home, at Bama. I think they probably lose that game. Then you finish off the season with Oklahoma, at Carolina, at Mississippi State, and Arkansas. That Oklahoma game, if you talk to anyone close to the program, That is a game that has been circled on the calendar for a while. That is currently, I'm not saying they're a better overall program, but right now, Missouri has a better team than Oklahoma. And I think that is a game, when you talk to anybody close to the program in Como, that's one you've had circled for a while. That's one you've had circled for a while, which is like, that has all the feelings of like little brother is pissed and he wants to show you that he's not, he hit his growth spurt. He's ready to go. It's like a kid coming back from fat camp, losing a bunch of weight, and he's like, I'm not that kid anymore. Was it Goodfellas? I don't shine shoes anymore. That's Mizzou. I mean, that's how Mizzou feels about like this conference. Their last, and like, dude, they're getting the worst of both worlds. Like, they already aren't taken seriously in this conference. Now you're bringing in people from their old conference that were like the two biggest, bullies in that conference. I guarantee you that Mizzou will have that game circled more than anything else. And when you look at them trying to get to the playoff, they have to be 10-2 or better with this strength of schedule. 11-1 would be great, but they have to be 10-2 or better to have a chance at the playoff. And that's what everyone's shooting for, right? So if you're going at the schedule, and I think they lose at A&M, I think they lose at Bama, they could be in a situation where they are 6-2 with 4 games left. Well, when you look at it on paper as of right now, like, you're not going to get a lot of street cred from an Arkansas win. No one's going to really give a blank if you beat Mississippi State. You're supposed to beat South Carolina. You could look at this Oklahoma game and in your mind think, if you're Mizzou, being realistic, man, this might be our last chance to impress voters and the committee and whatever else. Because we're supposed to win those other games, supposed to win those games by a lot. But like, that game against Oklahoma, I think, is one that they're going to win. I think it's going to be a very fun environment. They are going to have a field day in Como with that one, and I think that's one that you will have. You have a week off beforehand, right? You play Auburn, Bama on the road, and then you have a week off, and then you get Oklahoma. So now go a week past it, and you got to go to Williams-Brice. Brother, if there was ever a letdown, ancestors, if there was ever a spot for a letdown or a trap game, it's that one. November 16th at South Carolina on the road. I just told you they were 3-13 in road games from 2020 to 2022. I mean, you could make the case that for this team, the hay might be in the barn, right? Like, I don't think it's crazy to think that Mizzou could come off of that win and off of that high and lay an egg the next week. And again, we've seen this play out before. We've seen Tennessee and South Carolina. We've seen former SEC East people come into Williams-Brice in late November with a spot in the playoff on the line and choke. And here's the thing, guys. By that point in the season, we don't even know if Carolina might be a better team. So if you're going, I already told you the numbers, Luther Burden's numbers against ranked teams, right? Like this South Carolina team, the schedule is tough, but the schedule is the schedule. Man, you've been 3-1 the last 2 years, I think, each in November. You've closed strong. And then you talk about, like, what do you have left? Like, you can use that game, then you play like Vandy, and then you go to Clemson. Like, man, what an opportunity to be able to close out a season and like close out a month of November to get to a bowl or to get some momentum going into the finishing out recruiting that South Carolina is going to have. If there's a game you can look at on this schedule where I think it's like, man, that's a trap game in favor of South Carolina, it's that one. Because LSU is too early. I think they can win that game. I think they can win against Ole Miss. But you look at what Ole Miss has before that game against South Carolina, and it's no one. They play no one. You look at what LSU's got beforehand, like, it's they open with USC, and then I forgot who they have in week 2, but it's like they're not going to overlook South Carolina necessarily as much as Mizzou possibly can. Call me crazy. I just think that with all the numbers I just threw out there, and maybe it's just me talking myself into it. I hope you guys can do the same in the comments, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I just think if there's a spot on this schedule when you're looking for a trap game, it's that one, because it's not going to Tuscaloosa, it's not going to Norman, it's this one. So that's just how I feel. Let me know what you guys think as well, and we'll close this out with segment 3 right after this little break. All right, water break is behind us. Let's close out the Friday night episode. I appreciate you guys joining us along. It's been a fantastic week. Well, not really. We had a late start on everything, but I appreciate you guys being around, and we'll get some fun content. And man, I saw a thing yesterday that got me really excited. It said that, yeah, I think it was Thursday. So yesterday was the last Thursday of 2020. It's the last Thursday till February 2025 that we won't have football of some sort, whether it's NFL, college, whatever. That's awesome. That's got to get you excited. I mean, it's like that just makes me so happy. So I think we have like the Hall of Fame game next week or whatever it is. A lot of fun coming our way. Can't wait. I believe tomorrow is for Saturday. It'll be 35 days till kickoff. A lot of good stuff coming down the pipe. So our last segment that we're going to talk about, Georgia in more trouble. Off the field issues again. Wide receiver Ra Thomas gets himself arrested late Thursday night, early Friday morning. I think he got arrested like 3 o'clock in the morning. Hate to quote my grandma on anything, but nothing good ever happens after 2 a.m., guys. That you can tell people about. But anyway, so he said the Athens, Clark County PD, whatever, arrested him. And I don't have it in front of me because I'm unprofessional and unprepared like I should have. Ra Thomas. We'll just Google this real quick because I don't want to mess up the actual names of what happened. It was not good, and it was serious, and it was very much unlike any of the stuff we've heard with the driving issues and allegations or issues they've had off the air or off the field. Robert Thomas, this is his second arrest since he's been at Georgia. You remember he originally transferred from Mississippi State in December of 2022, but this is his second arrest. He got arrested early last year before spring practice for roughly the same thing. He was charged with false imprisonment and a misdemeanor count of family violence battery. Those charges were dropped, and he was able to, because he completed a pretrial diversion program, according to court records. Okay. Now, today, he was indefinitely suspended because he was facing multiple felonies after he was arrested for second-degree cruelty to children and 3 counts of family violence battery. Now, just a heads up, if you are not a lawyer just like me, this is what this means, because I remember Googling this earlier today. Second-degree cruelty to children is when a person with criminal negligence causes a child less than 18 years old to expose them to cruel or excessive physical or mental pain. Second-degree cruelty to children is classified as a felony in Georgia, and the penalty can include a prison sentence of 1 to 10 years. So here are my thoughts on this initially, and I'll probably have some more as it goes on. And this isn't the same as the driving situation. If you want to bring up the fact that Georgia might have a culture problem, I think it's fair. You've had 24 arrests, right? Like in 18 months since you had a player pass away from driving issues. 24 arrests from just driving stuff or street racing, reckless driving, like whatever you want to say. 24 driving-related violations, DUI, reckless driving, or speeding, since you had a player and staffer die in January of 2023. That's insane. That should be able to stop. And I sat there and I thought, I was like, maybe it's like not a culture thing. Because at some point it's like, dude, what can you do? They're taking away their money from the NIL stuff. They're taking away, opportunities to play. Sometimes they are. And as somebody that grew up near Athens in Lilburn, Georgia, it does feel like the cops in the Athens and Clark County PD, these are a lot of arrests, and a lot of times afterwards they are overturned or dropped or whatever. That's all I'll say about that. I don't think they're targeting football players. I think also at this point, dude, just stay out of trouble. this can't be that difficult. Like everyone in the country is now talking about Georgia, and it's not about football. And that's not something that's good for Kirby Smart or that's good for business. And if you want to talk about a culture problem, here's the issue I have with this. This kid should be off the team immediately, in my opinion. I don't know what happened. Maybe that's an overreaction from my end, but it's the second incident you've had in the same type of situation involving a child. So for me, that's enough. We're not going to get too much into this. As somebody that grew up in a setting that was very familiar with domestic violence and it was awful, that's not okay. That is a life-changing and life-scarring thing for a child. Again, I don't know exactly what happened. It was second degree. There's rumors that close to the program, people are saying that it was just him and his wife, fiance, girlfriend, whatever, like the mother of his kids, in a yelling match in front of him, and that's also enough to constitute this arrest or this felony. Fine, but either way, you've already seen it happen once, and it got, I don't say brushed under the rug, but it got wiped away. Now it happens again. This, on top of all of the driving stuff, I don't know if you can blame Kirby, because I honestly think Kirby cares. I think Kirby is probably so sick of hearing about this crap, because it's like, dude, I can motivate you guys to do anything in the world, but I can't get you guys motivated to follow the law and stop breaking the law. But if you want to point to something on top of all this that would point to a culture problem, this is the one that I found today that I have the hardest time getting over. And it's the college football graduation rate since 2016, the GSR rate. And Georgia ranks dead last in graduation rate for Power 4 teams and schools in the country at 41%. The next closest, guys, is 64%. 41%. And I got asked all day that, well, it's probably because of transfers. Nope. They were comparing it to Bama. And I think Bama has 5 more transfers at like 84 total in the last 3 years than Georgia has since 2016, which is 79. It's not transfers. It's like it. It very much feels like this entire program is dedicated to one thing and one thing only. And that's winning on the field. And there's, in some places there's nothing wrong with that. But graduate your kids, man. Like if you're trying to be taken seriously and this isn't a problem, graduate them. South Carolina, 90%. 90%. I mean, Vandy leads the SEC at 95%. Bama at second, 93%, which is shocking. Florida at 92%. Carolina comes in fourth at 90%. Georgia's at 41%. If you want to talk about a culture problem, I don't even think that you need to look at the overwhelming amount of off-the-field issues like arrests and street racing and this thing with Ra Thomas. Maybe the off-the-field issue you want to look at most that points to a culture problem is the one that's off the field and in the classroom, because that is unbelievable to be that negligent about getting your kids to graduate. That's the last thing I'll say on it. Whatever. Maybe we'll talk about it again next week when they have another player arrested. I shouldn't have said that, but whatever. I appreciate you guys joining us. I hope you guys have had a fantastic week and a great start to your weekend. Please be safe. We are going into the month of August. I can't wait, like I said. But before we leave, just remember, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. I'm getting a litany of text right now. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you, covering 24/7 the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thanks, y'all. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see y'all soon.